Welcome back. It's 11:30. You're watching To The Point here on GB News. Now, Insulate Britain have issued a final warning to Boris Johnson in an attempt to push their mandate of fully funding and take responsibility for the insulation of all social housing in Britain by 2025. Insulate Britain protesters are planning to inflict more misery on motorists this Wednesday with a series of blockades across London, showing you some images there of one of their recent protests where they blocked the roads. I think that was in central London. This comes as Prince Charles says he totally understands frustrations of climate protesters, but hopes they change their methods of protest.
Yes, well, Liam Norton, a spokesperson and, according to some, even a ringleader of the Insulate Britain movement, is here with us now. Thank you very much. What does unleashing hell mean?
Thanks for having us on the show. Well, here's what Robert Moritz, who's the chairman of a well-known eco-mob called PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the biggest accountancy firms in the UK and the world, I believe. He said this: climate change is the most formidable challenge humanity has had to face since World War II. We understand what hell World War II was for human beings, don't we?
Yes, but what does it mean when you say you're going to unleash hell? You're just going to, unleash the Blitz?
No, what I'm here to talk about is the hell that GB News should be talking about is the hell that's coming down the line for the people of this country if this climate change situation that we all face isn't dealt with.
Yeah, but what is it you're going to do?
We're going to keep the campaign going until we get a meaningful statement from the government that we can trust that they're going to start to protect the British people.
But you're actually putting people off the cause, aren't you? I've got a survey here. Half of people surveyed said that they oppose the protest compared to 27% in support. 62% of people said they believe that disruptive protests make the public less supportive of taking action on climate change compared to 8% who think they make them more supportive. So actually you're directly making people less supportive of taking action on climate change.
No, I think that's a nonsense. I think to bring out a poll that is critical of Insulate Britain's tactics, which is understandable, doesn't necessarily mean that they're willing to accept the destruction of their country. And if you want to talk about percentages, let's look at Chatham House, a report. I'm not sure if you've read the Chatham House report, but I encourage you to do so. And it says that we currently have, at the current trajectory, a 95% chance of going over 2 degrees C. Now, let's look at what the consequences of 2 degrees C are. We look at a peer-reviewed paper released earlier this year that talks about 1 billion people displaced and on the move. And let's look at the law, which states that the government have a legal responsibility to do their utmost to keep temperatures below 2 degrees C. So what's going on here is the biggest crime in British history, and Boris Johnson should be taken to court for treason.
OK, all right. I mean, some people would say, here's another figure for you, 0% of your home is insulated, isn't it? And you have the leaders of various eco-movements at the moment who drive diesel cars. Actually, I think a lot of people might say that you're not necessarily that ideological, you just like causing trouble and potentially a bit of a menace.
Yeah, I mean, to say it's 0% insulated is not true, is it, Patrick? So you're not researching
you haven't
your
insulated
figures
your own
correctly.
home,
well, of course it's insulated. It's just not necessarily up to the standard required. You're a journalist.
It's not up to the standard that you
doing
want.
Your job. You should be doing your job properly, mate, okay?
Right.
And if
well,
you want to talk about hypocrisy, let's talk about how journalists aren't reading the Chatham House report, like yourself, and how they're not conveying to their viewers about the absolute catastrophic situation that our country's in at the moment. So let's talk about that hypocrisy, how you're unable to talk about millions of deaths on your news programme.
Well, look, I'll tell you one thing I have read, and it's the CPS's definition of terrorism. And it is, terrorism is the use of threat of action both in and outside the UK, designed to influence any international government, organisation or to intimidate the public. It must also be for the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial or ideological cause. Are you a terrorist?
I think you've misread that definition, Patrick.
I've not. It's right in front of me here. It's literally right in front of me.
Yeah, well, you've misunderstood it, haven't you? Because we're not violent, are we?
Well, no, you don't have to be violent. That's one element that you can be. You tick all the other boxes, though, don't you?
terrorism is using violence in order to gain political aims. Yeah, it is.
Influence or any international government organisation. That's what
you're misunderstood, Patrick. You're misunderstood, and you're a journalist, and you can.
I'm reading it, mate. It's in front of me here. I'm just asking.
No. Well, you've misunderstood it. You've misunderstood it.
Well, look, moving away.
You could do better, Patrick.
Well, I think so, could you, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I don't understand how you can say it's misunderstood. It's there right in front of you. What gives you the right to disrupt people's lives? If someone has got like a wife in labour in the back of their car, or a mother is next to them having a stroke, and you're lying in the middle of the road, what gives you the right to do that and to actually do that to people's lives?
It's not about what gives us the right, it's about what the situation is in 2021. And let's look at, as Sir David King says, what we do in the next 3 to 4 years will determine the future of humanity. We're looking at the suffering of millions of people. Now, let's look at another fact in that Chatham House report. It says 10 million people a year will experience heat stress exceeding the survivability threshold. Now, Patrick, can you tell your viewers what survivability threshold is jargon for?
What survivability threshold is jargon for? Number of deaths, I imagine?
No, it means that they're going to fry to death. Again, I think if you read that report, you might start to understand a little bit about what it is that we're talking about.
So you genuinely think that within a few years, people might fry to death?
I'm saying what the Chatham House report is stating.
But is that?
Well, I'm going off the most expert, up-to-date device that's out in the moment, and it's saying that if emissions do not come down radically by 2030, 10 million people a year will experience heat stress exceeding the survivability threshold. It's saying that there's a 95% chance that we're going over 2 degrees C. You haven't emotionally connected with the seriousness of this situation, and it's why you're outraged at traffic jams, okay? But we're in this awful moral dilemma where not enough is being done, and the future of our country is at stake. And that's what you're not connecting to, okay? And we're in this awful situation where groups like Insulate Britain are forced into this position where we're having to take this kind of disruptive action.
Well, there's other forms of action. I think that's one of the main points, right? So there's other forms of action. And I'm not quite sure how causing massive traffic backlogs is going to reduce emissions, to be perfectly honest with you. The other thing is, as well, one would have thought that it would be important to bring the public with you. And there are surely other courses of action that you could take, as opposed to helping to contribute towards there being a massive pile-up on the M25, people suffering in the back of cars who can't get to hospital, and frankly, people's massive days being massively disrupted.
Yeah, and those other forms are ineffective, so we refuse to do them. And it's not about causing traffic jams, is it? It's about cost. It's about creating material disruption to the government, which it's doing, which is why it's getting a response from the highest levels of government, and why Boris Johnson is mentioning this in his speeches at the Conservative Party conference. This is about talking directly to power. That's what this is about. We've seen it's effective.
When's the demonstration in Beijing?
Well, are you going to get me out to Beijing? If you do that, Patrick,
would you do it, though? Would you actually do it? Would you honestly go and conduct...
If you pay for me to go, I'll be on the first train, high-speed train, obviously, and I'll go and speak to the ambassador for you, Patrick, yeah?
I think
why are you being so down? Why are you being so down? Why are you being so down on this country? Why are you refusing to accept the responsibility that the British government has to stop tens of thousands of its own citizens from freezing to death?
This country has decarbonised faster than any major economy. We've got a legally binding target to go net zero by 2050. The government's bringing in a legal, it's banning new petrol and diesels from 2030, I believe it is. We are doing more than many, many countries across the world. We're 1% of global emissions. So what is the problem that you have with what we're doing? Surely you should be taking the fight to many other countries abroad.
Well, the British government don't have a responsibility to stop tens of thousands of its own citizens from freezing to death as we're going into an energy crisis, which is what's about to happen. And to be quite honest with you, this is about honour and integrity and about Britain doing its bit. It led the world into the Industrial Revolution, and now it has to lead the world out of it. And we've got a responsibility. And through doing that, what we will do is we will create hundreds of thousands of meaningful jobs. This is the best value for money for reducing emissions, and it's going to bring millions of our citizens out of fuel poverty, which, as we're seeing now, going into an energy crisis, is more vital than ever. So I don't understand how you can argue with this proposal. It's a win-win. It's a no-brainer. Why aren't the Boris Johnson just getting on with it?
Yeah, I think you mentioned something about jobs there. People are quite keen to say, well, what is it you do for a living?
I'm an electrician.
You're an electrician, okay, all right, fine. And so are you taking time off work? Because I've always wondered this about Insulate Britain. How come they can all get so much time off work?
Well, yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm trying to protect British citizens and trying to do my bit in order to save the future of this country, which, I think is got some integrity attached to it, Patrick. I mean, are you trying to attack my integrity?
No, not at all. I've just always genuinely wondered how many of these kind of ecologically minded people, as it were, seem to be able to take time off work all the time. It's just always crossed my mind. So look,
Patrick,
just for the final time.
Patrick,
Yeah.
I'm not ecologically minded. I'm interested in children alive today not starving to death.
Okay, all right. Well, I think that's one thing we can agree on. Just very lastly, I've tried to.
Well, why don't you do your bit and try to convey to your listeners about the seriousness of this situation, Patrick, instead of laughing
we've got you on, haven't
about
we?
Insulate Britain at the start.
No,
instead of
we've got
laughing
you on.
about Insulate Britain unleashing hell, you could have some integrity yourself.
I'm not laughing about it. I'm trying to ask you, and that's my final
your
point.
Viewers about the seriousness of the situation.
Okay, all right. Look, this is my final point. Genuinely, I'll finish how I started. What does unleashing hell mean? Just tell us what it is you're going to do. You can't answer a straight question.
I've told you what unleashing hell means. It means 1 billion people on the move.
But you're saying you're going to unleash hell. So what are you going to do?
No, you asked me a question of what does unleash hell mean, and what the government are doing at the moment is unleashing hell on their own citizens. That's what's going on here. And you're unable to
they're going to unleash hell if Number 10 don't give in to their demands. What does unleashing hell mean? What are you going to do?
Will continue. It means well, I've just said to you at the start and you didn't listen to me, Patrick, so it's really difficult. It means the campaign will continue until we get a meaningful statement from our government that we can trust. And as soon as that happens, we'll be off the roads immediately.
OK. Thank you very much. Good to have you on.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
To have your views, however much, of course, we may disagree there. Liam Norton from Insulate Britain.
Indeed.
Lots of views flooding in.
Is it too early for a gin and tonic?
I don't know. Hey, look, you know what? I think, just to make one thing very clear, I do think anyone's perfectly entitled to whatever views they are, but I just didn't really feel like you could answer a straight question, really.
Yes, well, let us know what you thought of that Insulate Britain protester. GB views at GB News.
I can't read any of these out.
Yes, well, let's go to a break. I think it's a good time for a break. Catching the flu and COVID is twice as likely to kill you, according to health officials. We'll be looking at the best way to protect ourselves and asking how worried we should be. We'll be back after this.